friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here today because I'm going to talk about some of my recent reads. So I'm not going to talk about the 13 horror novellas that I read for a vlog because I just put out that vlog, so I'll link it in the cards in the description box down below. But here are a couple other books that I ended up reading in September, starting off the month with Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is not a horror book. It is like a classic. This is actually like a classic of the Harlem Renaissance. This came out in the 1930s, and this is about an African-American woman telling her life story growing up in rural Florida, and I think it's like Eatonville community, which is based off of a true black community in Florida. And yeah, I loved this book. This book is so well written and scary, and it's real life horrors, like honestly in this, and I thought the ending was gonna go one way, and I was really nervous about it. I was like, oh no, this is gonna get bad, and spoiler alert, it doesn't get as bad as you think. It's still pretty rough, but you have to think this is being told by, you know, the main character is telling her life story, so it's like, oh yeah, she's alive. But I thought it was gonna go like a totally different way for a second, and my main reason for picking this up is because it's been on my shelves forever. It's also on like the 100 books you have to read before you die list, I think. And also Zora Neale Hurston, I heard on a podcast, well, not her on a podcast, but the Lore podcast actually talks about her in an episode I was listening to about having a certain experience and witnessing something in like a ritual or something like went down in her studies, because I think she was I don't know what the term is, I'm blanking on it now, but basically she was like studying a community and something went down and she had like an experience. So I was very intrigued. I really like this book. This is actually considered one of Hurston's best works, but I'm excited to read more stuff from her. I know a lot of people read this book in high school. I did not. I kind of wish I did. And yeah, I highly suggest it if you haven't read it yet. I think it's like one of those go-to like classics that you need to read. The next book I ended up reading was Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. This is a YA sci-fi mystery horror book. There's some genre blending that happens in this, and I enjoyed it. I really liked the beginning of this though, because the beginning sets it up as like a mystery, like a murder mystery thriller more, and then it kind of delves into more sci-fi fantasy themes in this. But I really like the main character, Zoe. You do follow three girls, but Zoe's point of view is really funny to me. She has all of the Star Trek jokes, and I thought that was very funny. But the humor in this breaks the tension a lot, I think, and it had a nice flow to it. I would say until like towards the end, before the main climax, stuff got very repetitive in this, and I was starting to get very bored. I kept putting it down because it just kept it being super repetitive. So that's why I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Okay, you guys were all waiting for this one. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I had so much fun listening to this one. I listened to this one with Kim and Carol from Carol Marie Reads, and we chatted about it on the Discord, and it's just like a lot of fun to read with a couple people, especially a big King lover like Carol. So it was so great. I know I said this is like a Dark Tower book, like you don't have to read Dark Tower series to read this book. It just has some Easter eggs to it, I guess, but it also has Easter eggs to a bunch of other Stephen King books. And I absolutely loved it. It's so good. I know everybody's like, oh, it's so long, but honestly, it read very quickly, and I listened to the audiobook, which is 24 hours, and I listened to it, I'd say I started it Wednesday, maybe like 4 days, so I didn't rush through it in any way. It was just nice, and the audiobook is so freaking good. Okay, King is in the audiobook, you guys. So that is not a spoiler because it says so on the audiobook. But just saying, it is a fun time. So this story, you follow a boy named Charlie, and there's a big opening to his backstory and stuff, and I'm not going to get into it. But basically, he's coming home from school or practice or something one day, and he hears like a dog crying. And he goes and he jumps this fence, and it's like a Norman Bates style psycho house in their town up on the hill. Everybody's scared of it. And he goes in and saves Mr. Bowditch, who fell off of a ladder and broke his hip. And he ends up being like friends and taking care of his dog Radar. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say, because I feel like it doesn't get to the main story until like a little far in to it. And Radar, all you have to know is that Radar, this dog, is such a great character. I feel like this dog was done really well as a character without taking like the Dean Koontz route of having Radar's POV ever. You're only in Charlie's POV the whole time, but still, like, I think it's done so well. It's so compelling. This felt like a love letter to H.P. Lovecraft, Ray Bradbury, all the Grimm's fairy tales. Honestly, like, this felt like King was like, this is why I fell in love with reading and writing, and here's my story. If you were hesitant to pick this up because you were like, oh, I haven't read the 7 books of the Dark Tower series, there's no need for that. Just loving King and loving, I guess, loving like fairy tales too, because there's a lot of like fairy tale stuff in this. It's called a fairy tale. And just loving, I guess, the general sense of uneasiness and weirdness and horror that is in the original fairy tales. You'll absolutely love this book. Okay, so the next book I ended up listening to from Libby is The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. Who am I? I read a rom-com. This kind of intrigued me though, because it's like Bewitched a little, and I really liked that show. Like, I was around for that show. No, I watched that show like on Hulu or something. But I was like, oh, like a funny comedy about witches, maybe with some romance in there. I will say I really like the town. I like the whole setup. I like this coven of witches, or like the friend group, a lot. Especially I liked one of her main friends was so witty and just like really smart and funny. I like all the cussing in this book. There's numerous F words and yeah, just really vulgar language. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, yes, I love this. But okay, I guess the romance part, I was like, no, I'm so bored right now. Okay, so the plot of this is basically she curses her ex-boyfriend. A lot of curse stuff happening in this town before Halloween. There's like a big event happening. And they're like, oh no, we have to figure this out. I did this by accident. I don't understand my magic, blah, blah, blah. But they continue to just like have sex all the time. Like, so if you like that, this is the book for you. But I was like, shouldn't you be figuring this out? Like, why are you just spending this whole week, like every second, like thinking about sex or having sex? I was just like, weren't you guys like super worried about something? Like, shouldn't you be trying to figure it? And even like the main character says it like, oh yeah, I should have spent this week instead of having sex so much by figuring this out. Like, she even says it in the book, and I'm like, yeah, like you should have been figuring this out. What were you thinking? Like, there were no thoughts happening apparently. But I thought this book was really funny at certain parts. There's a talking cat part that I thought was really funny. But honestly, like, it's not for me. I realized this genre is not for me. I was really bored. So I did finish it though, but I think I'm leaning towards like a 2-star, and it's just me. It's just me. I'm not like a romance person, I don't think, unless it's like really not a part of the main story. But there you have it. Those are some of the books that I read in September. Let me know what you read in September. Are you intrigued to read fairy tale? Let me know, and you guys have a great day. Bye.